Sorry? Okay, I just need to get the questions and the... Have you got the live link handy? Okay, cool. I just got to see the L chat box. Okay, live when you're ready. Nice one, Skeleton. First. How you doing, guys? I'll wait a couple minutes just so people can start filtering in. Once you rock up, please make yourself known. Say something in the chat. If you have any questions straight up that you haven't already put into Mentee, throw them in the chat as well, and we'll get around to them as soon as we can. Sorry, is this a sound check, Jonathan? I messed with it. All right, awesome. Yeah, sorry about the poor quality audio yesterday. We were in a bit of a rush, obviously, with everything that was coming out, and I failed to set up the good microphone, this microphone, to do it with Key yesterday. So I apologize for that. Hopefully, this audio is much better. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Hallo aus Deutschland. Hallo Konstantin, wie läuft es bei dir? Es ist gut zu dich sehen. Zu dich sehen, Entschuldigung. Okay, well, I may as well get started. Thanks everyone for showing up once again to another AMA. Sorry if you missed yesterday, or if you're tuning in for a second time, welcome back. And if you're watching this recorded, good to have you here as well. So, second day of this major set of announcements. There's been a lot of discussion overnight. It's just been really great to see. There's some pretty mixed feelings about what's happening around here, and I aim to address all of the concerns that have been raised. And I will continue to be doing these AMAs for as long as is required. I can see that there is some frustration out there. There's also a lot of support though, and I think, you know, based on some of the calls that I've already had, I think there's a lot of you know, really key people in the project that can see why this decision has been made and what it's going to mean for the project. As I said yesterday, I'm more bullish than I've ever been. I think this is unlocking opportunities and potential that was never possible before. And there's, you know, a lot of really great things that can happen now. And the overall upside has really been unlocked through executing this strategy. And prudent decision making is not always easy. You know, you can't make everyone happy. There's so many different priorities and people and interests to manage and balance, and sometimes there are situations in which you can't make everyone happy, and we never have. There've always been people that have disagreed with the company strategy in general. There's always been people that have disagreed with certain decisions that have been made in the project through various points in time. That's nothing unusual, and nothing that has really given us too much pause for concern, other than making sure that we are genuinely looking after the best interests of the community. We are genuinely looking after the best interests of our team and our community, our development, our software, our products, and our mission. There are so many different things to balance, and it's so great to see that there are so many people out there that trust us, support the vision, and are on board with decisions we make in the best interests of what we're doing here. So to all those people, thank you for your ongoing support, and I look forward to seeing you around and giving you more access to great privacy technology, and hopefully giving you the opportunity to help get the word out there as well. So anyway, with that, we will get into some questions now. Okay, so there's been a bunch of questions. I'm just going to go straight for the one that has got the most upvotes in the mentee. This is probably one of the more difficult questions, but that doesn't matter. I'll answer whatever questions have to be answered. Question is, what is the role / value of Loki tokens in the upcoming Oxen ICO? I think they mean Chainflip ICO. If someone asks, is this a Loki sellout in terms of rebrand, what's your answer? This is not a sellout. That is not the intention here at all. The reality, and I keep saying this, and people keep not believing me, but this is the reality, that regulatory changes have occurred since we announced our support for Chainflip. Those regulatory changes have dramatically changed the landscape of what is possible with the resources that we have. Had we known that was going to happen, we probably wouldn't have invested time into Chainflip, in all honesty. But we did. And, the decisions that we did make have led to a situation now where we have one value proposition, which sits over here, being Oxen / Loki, which is very privacy oriented, always has been, always will be, opening up that technology stack and really going hard on the initial value proposition that this project has always had. Chainflip, never really depended on Loki. It was a vehicle that it could use to exist, but it is not. Privacy is not essential to Chainflip, and in fact makes it a lot more dangerous from an optics perspective, from the regulatory side of things, and it's just not something that mixes well. Decentralized exchanges and privacy is a very challenging topic, and it's not really something that can be conscionably done with so many people involved, and quite a lot of risk on the line. So there is a lot of different things to balance. There is no selling out here. We've making sure that as this occurs, that these burning programs, these swapping programs, airdrop programs exist so that value can be transferred across for those community members that are interested in doing that and do want to become a part of the Chainflip community. That's all there. And it's also important that the work that's already been done is recognized on the foundation side as well, because there has been a fair bit of work that the foundation has contributed towards Chainflip. That is also being recognized. There is an agreement in place whereby the foundation is getting access to Chainflip tokens, meaning that its runway could be greatly extended if Chainflip goes really well. It's all incentive aligned. No one is getting screwed over here. No one's leaving the project. None of that stuff is happening. This isn't a crisis. This is a reinvention, and it's really exciting. It is really exciting. This is unlocking so many doors that were just closed to us before. And that goes for the Oxen side of things. That goes for the Chainflip side of things. It across the board is a way better way forward for everyone involved. And some people can't see that, and that's fine. They don't, they have every right to feel, confused or upset or whatever else. They made some assumptions about what would occur, and those expectations were not met. and that is something that has to be managed. That is something that we have to work through. I'm not knocking that for a second, but at the same time, that doesn't mean it's not the prudent decision to make, and it's not like we're not being transparent about it. We haven't even finished the Oxen brand. You know, we really did want to get this out there as quickly as we could, to make sure that people felt like they're informed about what the prevailing strategy was going to look like. We have every interest in making sure everyone feels informed and included, and up to date about what's going on with this project. And so, you know, if we were selling out or exit scamming or some other bullshit, I wouldn't be here talking to you right now. It just doesn't make any sense. We have every intention of doing right by everyone here. Some people can't see that. Lots of people can. And to those people, I'm eternally grateful. But anyway, I hope that has answered the question. What else do we have? Sorry, I'm not sure if you guys can hear that, but yeah, good point from my producer, Jonathan Ross. He's actually called Jonathan Ross. It's quite funny. There is no Oxen ICO. We're not doing an Oxen ICO. There will be a Chainflip ICO, but it's not a public thing. Again, you know, private placement, all that sort of thing, at least initially. And you know, those details are not locked in. It's still very early stages for that as well. There aren't a lot of details to divulge because they haven't been locked in. You know, so there is still a lot of room for maneuver there. This is not something that has been done ahead of time and is now being revealed. This is us going out there and explaining what is going to occur rather than what has already occurred. And because it is still in the future, there is still opportunity to tweak aspects of the arrangement so that people feel like they're getting the value that they you know, should be entitled to. So yeah, that's a good point to clarify. Thank you for that. All right, we're just going to quickly look in the chat. Some stuff about the VPN marketplace, comparisons to Orchid with LokiNet, and there's some other stuff as well. I'll move those. Skeleton and DT, thank you for your questions. If you do have questions, keep sending it in. I'll put those over on this document and I'll grab them at the relevant time. But I've got some other questions here that I'll go through now. So question number 2, how many developers are working on the Oxen ecosystem and all other side products like Chainflip, Session, etc.? Okay, so the organization structure at the moment is quite interesting. We've been doing some stuff on the back end to restructure the way that our organization works, to streamline things and make it a lot simpler in the last 6 months. So we actually had an operational company called Rangeproof that was established before the foundation was, out of necessity. That company has now been sold at, you know, nominal value, like I think it's $3 all up, to the foundation. So the foundation now owns and operates the operational company that actually develops a lot of the software. Within Rangeproof, we have Chris is just walking past. I thought he could tell me, but he's on a call. Never mind. Don't worry about it. We have, I think it's 25 full-time staff working on the project in various capacities at this time. More than half of those people are software engineers. The rest is made up of operations staff, executives, and the communications/marketing team. And within that, there is a growth team. We also have now a business development arm, which is 2 full-time people at this stage. That could grow if that is successful, and a communications team of about 3 people. And then on the development side, we have Jason working on Oxen Core. He'll soon be joined by a new hire that we just made a couple of weeks ago, Sean. And then from there, we'll also we've also got the session team, which is Neil's. I think it's 4 or 5 people. I'm not going to list all the names because it's probably quite boring for everyone. But yeah, 5 people on the session team. We have 4 people on the Chainflip team at the moment, but they will be being contracted out to Chainflip for the time being, but they can still be used for Oxen tasks. Chainflip itself isn't a company yet. There's been some slowdowns because of the way Germany likes to do company registrations. That means that there isn't actually an entity for that yet, but that is being done and will be done next week. So there's some more things that'll happen there. We also have the LokiNet team. That's 2 people. And what else? I think that's about it. But yeah, about 25 people all up. And, we're constantly hiring, constantly looking for more talent because there's always more things to do. So, there are limitations to what we can spend annually. Otherwise, we'd already be gone if we hadn't been managing our finances adequately. But we are very interested in making sure that whatever we do, we can stick around, not just for the next year, but for the next 5 years. So we always operate with that sustainability and that longevity in mind. And I think the fact that we're still here is evidence of that. Okay, question 3. You mentioned Oxen can enable a replacement for Jira and similar software. How are you planning on promoting this to schools and workplaces? It's a great question. Yesterday, I talked about, and in the blog post, we talked a lot about opening up the Oxen stack and what that's going to mean. All these protocols, libraries, and solutions that previously have just been behind closed doors here. And now we are opening that up, writing documentation for it and allowing developers to get it out there. The idea is that we will not be producing these products directly because we already have our hands full with LokiNet and Session. But in so doing, we've had to create a bunch of tools that are useful for way more products than that. Then that could be Jira, Mattermost, Discord, Twitter, maybe not as much Twitter as a social media thing, but productivity tools, communication tools that better security and better privacy is needed, and there are holes that need to be filled there within the marketplace. And so we will not be the ones developing these products because we don't have enough time in the day to do all these things, but we are making it really easy for other developers and building partnerships and building relationships with these other software projects to get their technology leveraging ours. And that is going to have some really good results if we can get that happening within a reasonably short period of time. And that's going to depend on how quickly we release our libraries, how well we write documentation for them, how much time we invest into improving them so they become even more attractive. But we've solved some incredibly challenging problems within this organization that no one else really has ever had to solve. And now that they are solved, they can be plugged and played into a very large number of products, some of which already exist. There's nothing stopping, let's say Jira from implementing onion requests, for instance, which would greatly improve, or they could put a LokiNet mask on it as well. That would greatly improve encryption. That would greatly improve security, and it's technology that's already been built. There's no further work required in a lot of these cases. We've built new protocols for peer-to-peer communication because ZeroMQ was inadequate. So we made our own. We improved upon ZeroMQ, and now we have Oxen MQ. And we just had to build that. That was just something we had to do along the way, and that's a solution that anyone else can now leverage. And that's going to bring value to the project in a number of ways, especially through the business development arm. We have to make it so that we can be contracted to build and improve these protocols and support them and everything else. And, there's revenue that can come in directly for the foundation there, which offsets other costs, which means we can spend more money on things like marketing and so forth. Then there's also the case of, building these marketplaces. And to come back to your question about how a VPN exit marketplace would work on Oxen is we would have a website set up, and also as a hidden service where people could jump on it and access it. It's essentially a crypto-based marketplace, and we can have integrations for various payment providers and whatever else, depending on how it eventually gets set up. But this stuff is not that difficult. It's a payment platform, and it's not dissimilar to how many other VPN providers work. And it's just a case of having a platform where people can go, they can select from various different providers, and they can pay with Oxen using the system, and it's all natively supported. They don't need to go and buy Bitcoin first. They don't need to do any of that kind of thing. It just kind of works. So this is all possible. This is all entirely feasible, and wouldn't require that much in the way of development time. But we're really excited to be releasing exits this week. which is currently the plan. I believe they're working on a release as we speak. And so for the first time, you will be able to, through just installing LokiNet and specifying an exit node, turn it on, boom, you're browsing the internet anonymously. The ClearNet website, you can jump on Facebook through LokiNet now. And that has not been possible before. This is a huge step forward for the project, and is really unlocking a lot of doors about what we can do with LokiNet. And obviously, we have to rename it as well. I don't know if some of you guys have seen some of the teasers for the branding for the project, but it's looking really awesome as well. So yeah, I think it's super exciting. Okay. What else did we have here? I'll look in the chat briefly. Sorry, there's a lot of things going on right now. How does it compare to Orchid? What are the entryways in and out of the marketplace? So yeah, as I said, it's a website, and with some simple integrations of some very common platforms, PayPal, etc. It wouldn't be hard. It's not rocket science. You don't need a decentralized solution to an Oxen marketplace. It's something we can provide. If you do want to do something in a more distributed manner, individual providers have every ability to charge and whatever in whatever capacity they think, but the native experience will be much simpler than that, and something we can operate as a hidden service as a snap on LokiNet itself. And so when you click, rent and exit, boom, it comes up. You just open it up. It's a hidden service. It's got all the integrations. You can pay with Oxen, and you don't even have to buy Oxen. You can still pay with it. So there's lots of ways of doing that. We've been thinking about similar things in terms of session, how we can get some of the monetization features for that locked in place, and making it easy for users as well. So even if they have nothing to do with crypto, even if they've had never owned Bitcoin in their life, it doesn't matter. They can access the functionality, they can access the utility, and pay for the network to do its thing without actually having to jump through all the hurdles that we all have in order to get involved in cryptocurrency in the first place. So these are all within the realm of possibility, and we've got a clear idea on how it would work. It's just is it worthwhile? Because with no user base, there is no point creating these systems. If there's no actual product, you can't have a user base. And so until recently, we haven't actually been able to capitalize on any of these opportunities. And we are still going to have a focus on user count, because if there's no users, there is no point monetizing. You can't monetize a user base of 10 people. It doesn't make any sense. And I understand that there is a lot of interest in the community about monetization and exactly what it's going to look like, because they want to feel like their token is going to appreciate overnight. There are lots of reasons why Oxen is a valuable token project. There are lots of reasons why capital inflows should, and probably will occur in the coming months, in the coming weeks, in the coming days even. It's just these monetization systems are a moot point unless a user base exists for them, and that's why our focus is on users. We can't monetize nothing, so that is where we dedicate our resources to. We have a very clear idea on how all these things will work. But if we were to spruik details about it, we would just be talking bullshit. We would be bullshitting you, and that is not something we're interested in. We have to get the user base. That is what we've been saying for a long time. That is what we are still targeting. And we feel very, very confident that we'll be able to chase down that user base based on the data that we already have about the advertising for those applications that we've already done. 400,000 downloads of session within the first couple of months. That's no small feat. We paused that so the technology could catch up. But now we think it's there, and those taps are going to get turned back on. And so, as we go into next year, and it's not going to take the whole year either, we're going to be looking at targeting, 1 million, 2 million users for session, for instance. And LokiNet, depending on how this initial trial period, well, it's not really a trial period, but how this initial exit release goes and what the feedback is for that is, and if the user experience meets expectations, then we can also look at, okay, now we'll pump some resources into this and generate a user base for that. So I hope that makes sense. These are prudent decisions. We are a token project, but we are also a technology project and a product focused project. And so we have to make decisions in a similar way to other app development companies. It is about user acquisition. It is less about monetization. That usually comes later. You can't monetize nothing. So I hope that makes sense. Anyway, is it safe to say Chainflip will use a well-known existing blockchain such as ETH or maybe Polkadot? Yes. It is likely that Chainflip, the token itself, will be available on Ethereum, if not native on Ethereum, or native on a substrate-based blockchain, a Polkadot ecosystem, possibly. We're also exploring other options as well. But yes, there is a very high certain. I'm very confident that there will be Ethereum compatibility with the token itself, and may actually be initially issued on Ethereum. And that is for a very large number of reasons. If privacy isn't really a consideration, having the token being available on Ethereum, as we've seen with WLOKI, unlocks a lot of potential in terms of integrations, makes storage really easy. There's a lot of advantages, and the idea of Chainflip is to be cross-chain. But that kind of works in our favor as well, because if we can be aware of ERC20 tokens on Chainflip, then we can integrate markets for them on Chainflip, and so it just makes sense. But that being said, there is also a lot of advantages to having our own blockchain, and it's something we're going to have to do anyway with the state chain. So yeah, looking at that substrate-based chain or something similar is something of active consideration, and will be something that we have more details on in the coming weeks. But at this stage, we're not really willing to lock anything in place before the full analysis has been completed with some of the engineers that we're looking at bringing onto that team as we scale up before the end of the year. So thanks for that question. If you have questions, send them straight through. I'll be here till for another half hour. I've got more questions here, but throw them in and we'll get them answered for you. And if we don't get all the questions answered today, as we said, I'll be here all week. So we're going to be doing more of these throughout the week as required, because I know people have lots of questions. So until we run out, we're going to keep doing these. Okay. Sorry, I'm getting my wires crossed here. Does the LOKI Funds used for Chainflip till now will be given back for Oxen Dev, knowing that there are now two different projects? Yes, as I said just before, there is a deal in place to make sure that the LOKI Foundation, for the work that is already invested, is receiving sufficient remuneration in tokens, so that if Chainflip now does well, there is going to be major benefits for Oxen on the development side of things that will unlock a lot of further runway, further development capabilities, further marketing opportunities as well. So yeah, that's all in place. The value transfer is completely equitable, has been agreed upon by all parties, and has sign off from our Oxen legal team as well. So yeah, there's no issues there. Let's give exit nodes for free until we get a good user base. That is the plan. You can't just start billing for exits straight away, because people just want to try it out. So for the foreseeable future, Oxen will be providing free exit nodes for people to try out. The user experience on those might deteriorate over time, as often what happens is those servers get detected by various websites and providers as being a Tor exit node or a VPN or something like that, and so you can actually have a restricted user experience on a lot of websites, captures and that sort of thing. So there will still probably always be that free tier, but it will not be the same quality of experience as you'd get with using actual VPN providers' infrastructure through LokiNet to gain access to the internet with those restrictions removed. So and also preserving anonymity, obviously. So yes, that is the plan. Is Session ever going to integrate a wallet? It is going to integrate a wallet. This has always been the plan. It's just a matter of development priorities. As I said, with no user base, there's no point monetizing anything. And so our focus on the session side of things has been to improve the basic functionality of the app. So you receive notifications, and group chats are now bigger, and you can send bigger attachments. Basic stuff. When you send a message to someone, it comes through, you get notified. That sounds really basic, but for the type of application we're building with no central providers whatsoever, that's actually quite challenging. And it's something that's taken a while and actually a couple of attempts to figure out how to do it well. There's a lot of intricacies with how Apple and Google handle their push notifications, background polling. It requires very intimate knowledge of how mobile operating systems, in particular, um, individually handle a bunch of really crazy edge cases and that sort of thing that you wouldn't expect. The APIs that currently exist are very, very restrictive, and they are not set up to be able to do this decentralized messaging, particularly there's onion routing and everything else the session does. It's a pretty amazing system, really. And we've had to work around all of the intricacies and restrictions and limitations that Google and Apple put on their phones in order to prevent people abusing it for other reasons through other apps. But this is just something we have to deal with, and it's taken a while. But the wallet is something we plan on doing. But in terms of the list of priorities, it's not going to generate much value for Oxen if there isn't a big user base. The big user base is the key to all of this stuff. And so that is what we're targeting, and that is what we need to get excited about. That's what we're excited about anyway. Can we get a better appreciation of preferential first round purchasing in SN airdrop? Okay, there are a lot of questions about this. Okay, so what I'm going to do is write up a summary of the programs and offerings in place for that in a single document, so you can just read it. I'm not going to re-explain it. I've already answered this question a number of times. We'll put something together that is easy and accessible so everyone can see it. And so that should clear up a lot of the questions there. In summary, though, 9% of the supply, which is 60 something percent of the initial supply of Chainflip, has been set aside. So it can be used in various ways. We were able to lock in yesterday that we will be doing an airdrop to SN operators that will not have to unstake. That we done at the time of the airdrop. The remaining two tranches of 3% and 3% respectively will be available for the original burning program that we specified at rates that make sense at the time, depending on the demand, depending on various prices at the time. We're going to be offering the most preferential rate we possibly can based on the demand that's out there. Are there further incentives? Yes. Are there benefits for current Loki holders that want to invest in Chainflip, that actually put extra capital in? Absolutely. Is that any of that going to happen tomorrow? No, absolutely not. This is very early stages, as I said. We have a lot of work to do, and everything is still somewhat flexible. There is still some room to maneuver here, so that we can optimize the sale, the burning program, the Oxen situation. We can optimize various aspects of things to make it work the best for everyone involved. On balance, what is the best arrangement that we can put in place that works for Chainflip, works for Oxen, works for the community, works for the team? There is still some room to maneuver there. So, I can say things now, but they may change, and they likely will change, and they already have changed. Actually, since yesterday, since some really good ideas have showed up. There could be more incentives. There could be more access to tokens. This is all stuff that's negotiable. It's not set, but there are limitations. There would be no point, for instance, doing a 1-for-1 airdrop between Loki and Chainflip, because then we'd just be talking Loki, and that's not a change. So there is limits on what we can do. But we really, as I have said time and time again, our intention is to make sure that we retain everything that we're doing here at Oxen, everything that we've done at Loki as well. We don't want to fire anyone. We don't want to cut anything. We have not done that. We will not be doing that. This is the strategy to avoid that and to actually unlock a whole new range of potential that just wasn't possible otherwise. We have to stay focused. And I feel extremely confident in it. And I know that there are still lots of questions about how that's going to work exactly, and I aim to answer those questions. I'll write up a summary of the current plans. They could change, and they likely will. So, that's a consideration there as well. All right. Oh, I thought it was getting much later than it was. Excellent. Okay. If you're still in the chat, be great to hear from you. And I think I managed to get through all the questions in the chat so far. If I haven't, please let me know. Otherwise, I've got more mentee questions here, so I'll look at those for the time being. Is it true that the Loki blockchain, while capable of instant transactions, wasn't suitable to facilitate instant cross-chain swaps, and that's why Chainflip is being built on a different chain? If you actually read the Chainflip white paper, we were going to have to create a separate blockchain apart from Loki anyway. Chainflip was never going to be built on Loki. It was just going to be integrated with Loki. The private aspects, the private swaps and that sort of thing does come from the Loki blockchain, but could come from a number of different privacy projects. There's nothing unique to the Loki blockchain that actually supported Chainflip. It's just the people that were involved in Chainflip happen to be very value aligned with Loki, and so that seemed to be the logical thing to do at the time. Would it be better to build it on a transparent blockchain? Yes. Would it? And were we going to make a transparent blockchain specifically for Chainflip anyway? Yes. So in that sense, nothing's really changed. Probably the more valid question is, why is Chainflip becoming its own token? And the reason is quite simple. There are resources required. It's a very different value proposition, and the actual physical properties of the token matter in this case. Again, due to regulatory reasons. Having the base pairs being run through a private blockchain is a very, very different value, not value proposition, but it is a very different proposition from doing something that is more transparent. And so there are lots of reasons why that has been the case, and it's the prudent decision to make. There is so much potential across the board, but it is sucking resources out of Oxen, and it needs its own resources. So that's pretty much it. There's legal reasons and there are resource reasons. Yeah, but as I said, Chainflip was never going to run on the Loki blockchain. That was never going to happen. No one has ever proposed that. It is always required its own state chain, at least its own state chain, and that has not changed at all. How many tokens do the Loki team get from the Chainflip ICO? Very funny. I don't actually know. That hasn't been worked out. But most of the Genesis supply is going towards the sale. Most of it will be retained by the Chainflip company, the team token pool. And to what extent the current Loki team gets access to that is going to depend on the decisions that the Chainflip team makes about how it runs its option pool. It is important though to make sure that people that do work on it are incentivized to stick around. There is this assumption out there that you can pay devs a pittance and run them on an oily rag. It's just not the case. This is an incredibly competitive industry. To get the best talent out there, you need to incentivize those people to stick around. You cannot have a situation where either you're paying through the roof with standard salaries, and that is a strategy that a lot of companies take. Facebook and Google and that, they seem like cool places to work, but the salaries are so high not because they have to pay that much to attract new talent. It's about retention, because working at those places is nightmarish. So they have to pay a lot of money, and even then, the turnover rate is still incredibly high. So, with no skin in the game, with no actual care for the product itself, with no care for the token itself, people, the incentives are just not aligned. You can't run businesses like that, early stage businesses like that. You have to have those those things in place. What I will say about the Chainflip token option pool and option pools that we've run previously is that they are performance based. No one's just getting tokens. That is an absurd proposition. You don't just hand out tokens. You make sure that you set it up in such a way that people have access to an option pool, and those that stick around the longest and perform the best and meet the expectations that have been set to them are the ones that receive it. And those that fail to meet those expectations don't. And that means everyone's value aligned. Everyone's incentivized to make sure that it's heading the same way that all of the token holders want it to go, and the same way that the company wants them to perform as well. So this is all very sensible, common sense stuff that every startup does. And I have no idea why some people out there think that this is out of the ordinary. It is absolutely necessary. You can't run a company and like this. It doesn't end well. So yeah, in terms of the Loki team, are tokens just getting handed out for free? No. Um, if people have not worked on Chainflip / will never work on Chainflip, will anyone be receiving tokens just because? No. These are absurd propositions. And yeah, I mean, look, fair enough for asking the question. But we're not crazy people. Well, I don't think we're crazy people, but these are some very, very common sense activities for startups to do, and we are, an early stage technology company and a family of technology companies now. So, we have these considerations to look out for. Have you experienced outside interest from projects showing demand for using this new privacy stack? Yes, absolutely. In fact, there's a community in here that have created something called Cafe Loki that have developed something quite impressive in terms of social media. But has there been further interest? It absolutely has. I had a call yesterday with a group doing a study for the UN about end-to-end encryption, and they had some really interesting input and advice to give and that sort of thing. And there's things like that happening all the time. We have partnerships lined up with existing NGOs. We have lots of interest from various software groups about what we're building, and there's the thing is that we haven't actually been able to hand the keys to the tools over because they haven't been ready until very recently. This is a huge turning point. This is not just something that we've been sitting on our laurels for and quietly been holding on to, and then we're just announcing it because. No, this is genuinely a change in strategy. We're making these tools available, and we haven't done much really to promote what they are and how they could be used. So there is a lot more interest that could, should, and will be generated once that documentation is written up, once they're packaged up, once they're shipped out. So yeah, that is absolutely something that we will be doing as a part of the Oxen reframing. Could you use the 6 Oxen block rewards set aside for liquidity incentives to incentivize external development on the platform? This is a really great question. So when we were trying to set the economics up for Chainflip on the Loki network, we realized that there would be some requirement for bootstrapping liquidity. And as in doing so, we put it to the community that it might be a good idea to create this thing called the Liquidity Fund, which is a 6 Loki per block reward that gets held in escrow by the foundation and is used exclusively for liquidity provision. Now that's not really required. Some of it's already been used for Uniswap incentives, which is a really interesting experiment to see what would happen there. Yeah, the incentive is still being printed, and it's set to expire in about 5 months' time. In terms of what happens to those tokens, they can be burned. They can be used to fund external development. They can be used to fund foundation things. They can be used for a very wide number of things. They could be used for Uniswap incentives. It's up to the community to decide what happens with these tokens. We're going to be opening an LRC on this to explore all the different options. And if you have ideas on how this could be used, we would really like to hear those ideas. And we'll be opening up a forum and a setting to do that because, personally, I think there are a number of things we could do with it. I think burning would be an acceptable course of action. But I also think that, maybe there's some more creative things we can do with it. I think people overestimate the impact of emission in terms of token value and underestimate the impact that it can drive in terms of development promotion, that sort of thing. I think there, and liquidity incentives and that sort of thing. I think there are a lot of benefits that come from emission that so far have been discounted on the basis that it is just emission. There is this, very there is a subsection of the community that is very afraid of emission. Not that emission is directly proportional to selling, because that's not how it works. Demand is, emission is a supply side thing. Without demand, the price will never appreciate. And without, with not enough supply, you have a similar balance there. But the price doesn't go up without demand. So emission doesn't change the demand side at all. Well, actually, but that's the thing. It actually can. With the Uniswap incentives, for instance, that did create an incentive for people to buy WLOKI in order to access those incentives. And with further development being incentivized, new platforms and that sort of thing being given grants and whatever else, that emission's out there. But at the same time, that could bring more value to the project than that emission would be worth in the long run anyway. So to simply say that emission is bad is a gross underestimation of what is possible. So I'd encourage everyone to jump in and weigh in on that point of view. But yeah, there's lots of things that could be done with it. But yeah, it's a community decision. It's been set up for a purpose. That purpose is now not as clear. And so, as we always do with the economics, we put it out there and we make some suggestions. But I think there's going to be a very diverse set of opinions on what could and should be done with this reward. And so, yeah, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. And we're really excited to hear your input into that as well. Okay. Will there be any incentives built into Chainflip to encourage Loki Oxen swaps instead of other privacy coins? This is actually a really interesting idea that Lucifer brought to me last night. And by Lucifer, I mean the community member, not the devil himself. Although he may be the devil himself. I've never met him, so I don't actually know. Yeah, there is potential for that, to have a slightly different fee structure to make it so that the Oxen swaps are preferenced, or there's some sort of different structure in place for that specific pair, so that users of the platform can access Oxen at a lower rate than they would other tokens. I don't think that's unreasonable, and I don't think that's something that the Chainflip team would be opposed to either. So something we can raise and discuss. Obviously, you can't lock anything in until Legalize have had a look over it, because they are part of the risk assessment. What do we lose by doing such things? These are hard things to answer. But again, the intention is to make sure that everyone feels included, and if that is going to help in doing so, and actually give utility to Chainflip users as well, which I think it absolutely will. I don't really see why no one's opposed to that in principle. There's some details that would have to be worked out for that, but yeah, I don't think it's a bad idea at all. Okay, I have now run out of mentee questions, and so if you have any further questions, please throw them in the chat box so I can grab them before we end today's AMA. But I think this has been a good one. We'll be posting another mentee out and seeing how many questions get thrown into it, and if there's demand for it, I'll do another one of these tomorrow. And I might include some other members of the team as well if there's some questions that could be relevant for them. Will community run exits be a thing anytime soon? Yeah, absolutely. Anyone can run an exit node and they can throw it up for free. It's just not built for it. That is 100% something that people can do. We're not expecting a lot of it because we'll be providing some free ones as well. But if it's something that people want to do, it does help a lot. It increases the capacity for people to try out the product without having to commit any funds to it just yet, because it is still in its early stages. So yeah, that's a really good question, Cosmic Crypto. Necro Nemesis says use the block reward to bootstrap Loki net exits. I'm curious to know how you think that might work, and how the exit functionality would be paid for through the block reward and what that might look like. Is the Loki network big enough to handle all of these new changes and features? We had a similar question yesterday, which is, isn't adding all these new things going to make running service nodes more expensive? The answer is basically no. If you're following the recommended, guidelines on how to do these things, like what specifications your VPS should have and all that sort of thing. The network has so much capacity that is not being utilized right now. And we've been monitoring the scalability of the technology quite closely, making improvements on the software end. But the reality is, this network is massive. 1,200 nodes is no joke, and we could be supporting millions of users across multiple different apps and platforms right now, with the infrastructure that already exists. So yes, we do have capacity to grow. And presumably, if we hit that sort of level of usage and operating costs do actually start to increase, there'll be other ways that that user base is being utilized to make sure that it's worth upgrading the infrastructure to meet that demand. So yeah, there's no scalability concerns at this time, and there probably won't be for quite some time. Have we thought about scalability? Yes. Do we have plans to address it in the future? We absolutely do. Are we doing things right now to make sure that when we're running software that keeps its usage of actual physical resources to the minimal possible extent? Yes, we are also doing that. So yeah. When will the first Oxen developer conference be? That is an awesome question, and I'd say it'd probably be probably 2 or 3 months after we've released all of the software packages that we're talking about. So probably, and also developer conferences right now are kind of tricky because of the pandemic and that sort of thing. But I'd probably say we could look at doing something around March or April. Would be a really good time to do that. That's a fantastic idea. Not something that I'd actually considered before, but I really like that idea, and so I think we'll look into that a bit further. Yeah, okay. If you have any last questions, drop them in now. Otherwise, I will wrap this up because I've run out of questions, which is really good to see. Well, I mean, not really good to see, but it is what it is. I can do other things today, and there are plenty of things to do. So yeah, let's see. Any final questions? Since a lot of projects are getting renamed into Oxen, will Session be renamed? No. Oxen, Loki is being renamed Oxen. LokiNet will be renamed something else. It will not be OxenNet. And the foundation could be Oxen Foundation. We actually need to have a meeting about that to discuss that, whether or not that's the smart thing to do, or we should give it a higher level name so that we can go out there to non-crypto organizations with a different name and have a different face and a different brand to approach a different audience. That's something that we're constantly aware of, and so we haven't actually made a decision on that just yet, but we will do that very shortly. Yeah, if you have any further questions, we'll be putting up a new mentee for another AMA. Otherwise, I'll be in the group chats pretty much all day. I'll jump in where I can. I've got a lot of other things to do today, but we'll get around. I'll get around to them, and the team's in there as well. And there's been lots and lots and lots of discussion. So yeah, I think it's really great to see a lot of positive energy starting to come out as well about all these announcements and all these changes. And if you haven't already seen it, the session video that we've been sitting on for 6 months, or not sitting on, but polishing for 6 months, is now, we just released it to you guys and show you just the amount of muscle that we are ready to put behind session. So I hope you enjoyed that video. It's really awesome. Go check it out. I think you get a really good sense of the vision for session and where we think it's going. And it's promotional material like this that's going to really help achieve that. A couple last things from the chat. How does Oxen fare when it comes to SEO? There's nothing. It's an obscure plural for pack animals. But there's no other projects. There's nothing to compete with. So we're really confident that we're going to be able to jump in there and claim that namespace for ourselves. That's a big part of why we chose it. We had lots of other options as well. But there is always a lot of competition with various different other projects and software things, and there's just nothing. There's no video games, there's no films, there's no nothing. There's no Marvel characters this time, which is great. So yeah, SEO wise, Oxen is good to go. And that's a large reason why we chose it above other choices that were close to the top of the list as well. So yeah. Thanks. You guys do set the standard for transparency. Kind of ironic for a privacy ecosystem. It is ironic, isn't it? We should have all been anonymous, but that was never going to work. And I've never seen that pan out well, having anonymous developers. And it's an attractive idea, but if Sushi Swap is anything to go by, it really does create a very, very perverse set of incentives. And so, yeah, I will never buy tokens that have an unknown team, because it never ends well. Something always goes wrong, and no one's held accountable because there is no one to hold accountable. So screw that. Join late, just saying hi, hello, and goodbye. Thanks for coming, Max. I hope you have enjoyed this AMA as much as I have. Keep the questions coming and keep the discussion going. And yeah, I hope that answered some of your questions, some of your queries, and I hope that as we move forward, we can all get on board and see what's coming around the corner. There's some more stuff coming out this week that I think is really going to bolster a lot of support for what we've been working on and what the plan now is. So yeah, stay tuned. Thanks for joining us once again. And if you want to come to the next AMA, I think we'll do one tomorrow, depending on the question input. So watch out for announcements on that. So ciao for now. Be well. Great to be with you. Thanks, mate. Thank you.